Hey, everybody, welcome to the very first inspiration video where I am going to every week talk to different homeschoolers at first and other teens and young adults who are absolutely killing it, as they like to say, right? I am so glad you're joining me. I'm Leslee Dernberger of Aspire Education, or Mama D, if you guys know me as Mama D, my students and families out there. Tonight, to kick us off means a lot to me. This is my daughter, Katelyn. So, yay! So Katelyn was very gracious in agreeing to be my first interviewee, and I'm really honored to be able to introduce you guys to her. And I'm gonna let her tell you about her experience with homeschooling, because right now there's so many families who are really not knowing what to do about education, right? And I realize that this can be a super scary decision. And a lot of the questions I get, both when I was homeschooling my 4 kids, but also now as a consultant with so many people, what they want to know is, okay, does it really work? And I don't want to ruin my kids. It's the exact same thought I had. I was a little panicked when I first started homeschooling my 4 kids. And Katelyn actually went to public school through 1st grade, and I'm going to let her tell you more of her story. But I want to do this series by way of encouragement. Is it always easy? No. Is it always this picture perfect day? No. But I will tell you, it is so worth it. And there are so many benefits, even through the struggles. So that's what we're going to talk about. And every week I'm going to talk about that with my the different people who I interview. And Katelyn, please introduce yourself. Kind of just tell everybody where you are right now, like your age and what's going on with you right now, and then we'll kind of dig in.
Yeah. So hi everybody. I'm Katelyn. I am Mama D's second kid. I am currently 22. I'll be 23 in a couple weeks. I graduated from the University of Illinois at Chicago earlier in May. And I am working full-time as a UX UI designer at a company called Morningstar. And they're an investment research firm who also offers products and software for investors of all kinds.
That's amazing. And wait, you have to tell everybody just broadly, because I don't want anybody to know exactly where my daughter lives. But no, seriously, where are you living right now? Because this is
it's a very fun
living her dream
of life for me. So I am living in downtown Chicago, kind of right in the loop there. So I live about an 8-minute walk from my office.
And just from so many things that she just loves. She really, really enjoyed going to school there. Katelyn, tell everybody about, so I already shared that, we started homeschooling right after you were in 1st grade. So share with everyone what you can remember, right, from kind of that transition, because there are a lot of families who have elementary school age kids, right? And can you share a little bit about that, what you can remember in terms of that transition?
Yeah, so we started homeschooling after I finished 1st grade. And in terms of while we were at public school, I thought it was fine, but there were plenty of things that were not so great. I was coming home from school with a headache every day because I was a very shy kid and I didn't have enough time to eat my lunch every day. I got bullied a little bit. But in terms of the transition, like you said, I was pretty young, but I remember my parents' uncertainty, but I also remember you and Dad like sitting us down and talking to us about what we were going to be doing and how it was going to be something new, but that we were all going to work on it together. And I really, even then when I was so young, I really appreciated you guys talking to us and making it a conversation rather than just like, this is what's going to happen
Yeah.
and you're just going to do it. And because that's, I mean, that's one of the great things about homeschooling is you can cater it to whatever you want and whatever you need it to be. And so then you guys talking to us about what we were going to start doing, and wanting to hear our opinion and asking for it and asking if we were okay with it. I definitely remember that.
Oh, that makes me feel good. I'm so glad. Yeah, that was important to us very much. Even though we knew as parents that was the best choice for our family at the time, it was important to us that you guys understood, right? And that we talked about it as a family. So yeah, I like hearing that. I hadn't heard that before. This is great. So Katelyn, talk to everybody about what are some of the things throughout the years of homeschooling? What are some of the things that you really recognize now coming, all the way homeschooling all the way through high school? By the way, all 4 of our kids chose to homeschool high school, and we can talk about that a little later when I mean chose to homeschool high school in our household. But what are some things, especially now as you came out, and any experiences that you've had that really you can hit home with parents and with kids? I hope teens are watching this too, or kids are watching this, that you recognize as the benefits of homeschooling.
There are two that really come to mind the fastest for me. The first one being how quickly I was able to learn time management and how huge of a deal that was as soon as I got to college. Because, most kids, they're going to public school and they have everything scheduled out for them. They have to go to school all day. They have extracurriculars or sports right after school, then they go home, they do their homework, they go to sleep, and then they wake up and do everything the same way the next day. With homeschooling, especially in high school, we were given a lot more autonomy over our schedules. One of the things being, we had the classes that were only like once or twice a week. And then it was our responsibility to find the time in the rest of the week to do our homework. And so then when I got to college, you do have a class schedule, but the rest of your time is completely your own. You have to figure out what you're going to do with it, when you're going to do the things that you need to do, how to prioritize, and all of that stuff. And so I kind of noticed a lot of the people around me struggling with that. And actually, I worked in campus housing for 3 of my 4 years at school. And that was one of the main things that I worked on with freshmen, was figuring out their schedule and learning how to manage their time on their own.
Tell
So,
everybody a little more about that, Katelyn, because when people think campus housing, they think RA, but UIC
oh,
has a really unique system. So tell
yeah.
everybody just a little more about that you worked as a peer mentor.
Mhm. So I got a position as soon as I applied my second year or second semester freshman year. And so when I started as a sophomore, I was something they called a peer mentor. So I was specifically focusing on the academic transition of all of the first years on my hall. I offered tutoring, 3 hours of tutoring once a week. And I had, upwards of 70 residents that I was talking to on a regular basis, making sure they had all of the resources and information that they needed. And then talking with the ones who are struggling and having one-on-one meetings with them. I learned about them because their grades were struggling, but most of the time, the issue wasn't necessarily the subject matter in the classes, but something else. So I helped figure out what that was, and then got them the resources and assistance that they needed. And then after sophomore year, I moved over to what they call the senior peer mentor. So I was then supervising all of the peer mentors in the dorm.
Yeah, and I love how you tied that in with the time management, like you said, and I call it priority management, right? And
Yeah.
and you help them to work on that, and that's a huge skill, absolutely. So, what was the
Mhm.
second thing that you really came to mind quickly?
I really credit my love of learning to homeschooling, because there were certain subjects that I had to do that I didn't love, math especially, but we found ways to make it fun. So even when I hated math, but when I was learning fractions, you and I would bake brownies and I'd learn that way about fractions.
A lot of M&Ms and Skittles.
So, oh yeah. Um, and just in general, school never truly became a chore. And I think that's what happens to a lot of public schoolers, is because they're just sitting there day in and day out, under those fluorescent lights in those little desks. It's easy to find it tedious or even painful. But that never really happened with me, because I was able to not only find ways to make difficult subjects more fun and more engaging, but I was also able to find kind of out of the box subjects that I was able to spend time on and learn about that I wouldn't necessarily have gotten to do if I were in school. So I got to take 2 full years of art history. And I thought that was amazing. And I got to do actual projects during that time. Yeah. And so, I mean, now I still absolutely love learning. Even now I've graduated college. And I'm just excited to have time to read different books about like user testing and stuff, because even in my job now, I'm excited because it poses a challenge to me and I get to learn. So I think that love of learning is going to serve me really well in the long run, because I'm not going to let myself kind of get into a rut. And I'm going to be constantly seeking things that I'm engaged by.
I love that. And, I'm going to brag on Katelyn just a little bit. And, I do this for anyone who comes on here who I happen to know, but Katelyn worked very, very, very hard. And both in high school and in college, but like you heard, she did not like math, right? There are always struggles. There's always going to be something, right? And one of the things I recommend to families all the time, right, Katelyn, is I sat down with all of my kids in 8th grade, in that summer before 8th grade, well before we started classes. And I would take them out to breakfast or coffee, and we would sit and talk just to hear what they want to do and where they want to go and what they want to spend time on, and kind of map out a general plan for the 4 years. And I will never forget the look on Katelyn's face and how excited she got when she talked to me about her goals. And one of her goals was, Mom, I want to go to a good college. I know I want to go to college. I want to go to a good college. And I said, okay, if that's your goal, then we're going to make sure we keep all the doors open. But I'm telling you, honey, one of those means you have to take the SAT or the ACT, which means you have to get through this level of math, right? And she just looked and she looked at me and I said, but beyond that, you do not have to take it. You don't have to worry about calculus. You don't have to worry about anything after algebra 2. I'm and then you're good. And she just looked at me, and it was this look on her face I had never seen before. And she just went, okay. And honestly, from that time forward, there really was no contention at all with her and me or her and her dad, because when she didn't, just freshman year, there was a little bit of still like push, I don't want to do my math, a little bit, right? Freshman year. But all we did, and all I would do is I'd look at her and say, honey, I understand, but here's your goal. This is what you want. And if you want that, then you have to get through this, right? So how can we help? What can we do? And she figured it out. She just went, okay, that's my goal. And she didn't like it, but she realized it was a great lesson, I think, too, that she was able to learn and work through that for herself and say, wait a minute, this is important to me, so I will do this. And as a matter of fact, she tested high enough. She didn't have to take math in college even. So good job. But I also want to share. So that's a struggle and that she had. But I want to share, through all this, and brag on her a little bit. Not only did she just graduate from UIC, she graduated Summa Cum Laude, way to go. Complete straight 4.0. Super proud of you, because she had a very rigorous, very rigorous schedule. Not only, you heard she was a peer mentor, which was a job and a pretty time consuming one. Her major, she's a graphic designer, as you heard, and her major was incredibly demanding in terms of her time. But then she was also really blessed because of her hard work, and that she actually got a coveted internship at the summer after her sophomore year. And Katelyn, do you want to share with everybody what they said when they hired you? Because it was the very first time they had ever hired a sophomore, because it kind of ties in with what you were just talking about. And I think this was incredible confirmation. I want you parents to hear this, because so much you can achieve getting to college or reaching your goals in so many different paths and so many different ways. But the ultimate goal, right, is character and some of the stuff Katelyn's talking about. So can you share a little bit about that with them, that process and what they said to you?
Yeah. So I had heard about the position through spring of my sophomore year. One of my professors, he has a long-standing history with Morningstar, and he was just in passing mentioned that their marketing design intern was going to be graduating, and so they'd be searching for a new one. And I jumped on that opportunity because I had heard about how great of a company Morningstar is, especially for designers. So I emailed him, and he put me directly in contact with the woman who would later become my manager. And so I sent her an email, and I introduced myself, and I told her that I was very interested in the position, and I asked when it would become open, because I'd been looking on their job site and it wasn't listed yet. And she said it was great to hear from me. She took my resume, and then a couple days later she came back and she was like, all right, HR is going to set up some time for us to interview you. Oh, I think I may have frozen.
That's okay, we can hear you. So you're good. Can you hear me? We can hear you. Oh, technology. Can you hear me, Katelyn? Oh, you're back.
Okay.
We can
Okay,
still
good.
hear, just so you know, if you freeze, we can still hear you.
All right.
All right.
Well, okay. So they scheduled an interview with me. And I was like, all right, so I'm just going to be talking to Renee. That's fine. And then I hear back from HR, and I find out that it was going to be a 2-hour long interview in which I would be spoken to by 3 individual people. And I was incredibly nervous for it. But I just did everything in my power to prepare for it. I had never interviewed for anything to do with design, so I wasn't sure how I was supposed to show my portfolio or anything. But I printed out 3 copies of my resume. I put them in my little folder, and I brought my computer with me with my portfolio site that I had coded myself pulled up already so that I could show them. And some of the feedback that I got a few weeks later when they called me to offer me the position was that so Renee, who hired me, she has been hiring interns for a very long time. They had never hired a rising junior before. They only hired rising seniors. And one of those reasons being that rising juniors often lack organization and communication skills. But something that she was kind of impressed by with me was how prepared I was and how articulate I was when I was speaking to all of them. And also just my excitement for design and for that potential position really shone through. And that's something they were like, we want to hire people that want to be here. And so showing that passion that you have for design was really, really huge.
And they also said that they loved, it was obvious that she loved to learn.
Yep.
and her obvious love of learning too.
Mhm.
And you know, what more can you say in terms of preparation, right? Because all of us, we, you know, all of us parents, the idea is, right, we want to prepare our children to launch, right? And compassionate, you know, confident, capable. And I just am super proud of her too, because all of that stuff that she told you about and she did, you know, was learned over a period of time, but she had time to do it, right? And it
Mhm.
started before college, where she became, you know, she took ownership at one point where we would sit down, because all throughout, since they were young, I would organize and I would give them their sheet for the week, and, you know, and teach them those executive functioning skills like we all do. But in high school, she just owned it, right? She just, that's it. I actually was junior high for her, actually, where she's like, I actually love lists. This is good. And she developed her own system and figured it out. And it's that kind of it's that kind of confidence too that I think shone through. And I love that Katelyn shared with you her obvious passion, right? And that she was excited and she let herself be excited, because she truly was and is, and she was able to show that to them. And super proud of you for that, I have to say. But I think it's a great lesson for everybody too, um, to hear that, Katelyn, because sometimes it's hard for people to show that, I think, and to know that that is okay. So you're frozen, but we can hear you. So are you there? Can you hear me? Oh, I don't know if she can. So I will. Oh, she's back. Okay,
I'm back. I'm
you're
sorry.
back. No, that worked because I was talking anyway. You know your mom. So that's perfect. So Katelyn, I want to ask. I want to ask you, because you had experience, and it's something that comes up a lot, right? With every people I work with, and you get questions about it too. So in high school, how was it for you in terms of, you know, people ask, you played a sport in high school, you participated in a variety of different things. Also, I want to share with everybody, she has always been very art inclined and creative, whether it's piano or drawing or photography or designing little mini clothes, or it's always been the creative outlets, right? And I think homeschooling afforded her, and she'll tell you, I was like mama bear with protecting her time for that, and made sure that she had time to explore and to be creative or not. She would go through periods of time where her brain was just working on stuff and she didn't take that time. She would just read. She loved to read, like you heard. She's a really avid reader. But the point is homeschooling afforded her that time and space to do what she loves, and to do and to develop passions, and to see what she really did enjoy or didn't enjoy all the way into high school. But in high school, right? Can you share a little bit about that kind of experience? And because you made a decision to homeschool high school. In our
Mhm.
family, we told our kids, I was really direct with them. I said, you're not going back in junior high. Sorry. That was a no for me, because junior high is just a mess, right? But we told our kids, if you think you might want to go to high school, come and talk to us. Let's have a conversation, and you know, we'll, in our family, we'll pray about it and see, and have a conversation and see whether or not that is the right thing to do. So Katelyn, can you just share a little bit about your experience, kind of transitioning into high school and the choices that you made and why?
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, like you said, you gave us all the option of going to public school for high school. Because you know, you told us, you know, you've been homeschooled for long enough, you know what it's all about, you know yourself, and you wanted us to be able to take ownership of our education.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I was already pretty sure that I didn't want to go to high school, because most of my friends were public schoolers. And so I got to hear about all of the sitting around that they did and not learning all that much and being stuck at like gym class and all of that stuff. But what I did, knew I wanted to swim in high school. I was a competitive swimmer for a while, even before that, for years. Um, and so my freshman year, I started on the high school swim team. And women's swimming at high school, they start practices before school starts. So I was going to practices starting, I think, late July even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did camp in the summer for several
Yeah.
weeks. Yep.
hmm
And then practices started right after that. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I got to know a lot of people, girls on the team. I got to kind of see the high school and kind of see what it was all about, and make friends on the team. And so, you know, they were all like, Katelyn, why are you coming to school with us? Like, you should just join us here. Um,
Yeah.
but I knew that it wouldn't. I was also dealing with some mental health struggles that year too, and I knew that if I were to go to public school, it would only make things worse for me personally.
Yeah.
I knew that I needed the time and space to explore the things that I wanted to learn about. I knew I wouldn't have the kind of educational freedom at public school that I would be afforded in homeschooling. Um, and you know, of course, like every other teenager, I liked the idea of being able to sleep in
Honestly,
on
that's
days where I didn't have swimming.
physiological. Yes.
Yeah,
It's
it
actually,
drives me nuts that
yeah,
people
go
have to
ahead.
wake up so early to go to school because kids aren't ready to learn yet
Right.
that early in the morning.
Yes. I
Sorry.
actually shared studies with my kids so that I could say, because in
Mhm.
our house, I didn't make them get up at that time, right? Unless they had an 8 o'clock class that they
Yep.
chose, because it really does matter. So I know a lot of you parents may know this, but go ahead.
Yeah, so it was all kinds of smaller things that I had to consider. And you helped me think through, okay, what are your priorities? You know you want to swim, but do you have to go to school in order to swim? Um, what do you want to get out of your education? What would be the pros of going to public school? What would be the cons of it? Um, and just for a lot of different reasons, I knew that homeschooling was absolutely the way I wanted to go. And now in hindsight, I wouldn't have changed a single thing. Um, I got to go on multiple mission trips during the school year, which was
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
I
That was
never would
really
have gotten to
special.
do that in high school. So, yeah.
It's true. And actually, Katelyn and I, it was really special because I was a mission trip leader, and Katelyn
Mhm.
came with me to Italy and Spain,
Yep.
and they were just magical. We're still in touch with the family that we stayed with in Spain, who are just the most
Mhm.
wonderful, lovely people. But also, I did a lot of mission trips to the Bahamas and working with the Haitian community there. And the most special trip, all four of the kids were able to come too. So having those experiences and having that opportunity, and Katelyn, you just hit on a huge thing that I think is incredibly valuable about homeschooling, especially from a parent perspective, but I'd like to get your perspective too, was that my husband and I feel so blessed that we truly know and like our children. Like, we don't just love them dearly, we like them as people. And parents understand this, right? And what a blessing for us to be able to be a part of their lives, and as a family, right? The amount of traveling we were able to do is ridiculous, honestly. But I'd love for you, we'll kind of finish up here, and thank you for all your time. um, but I would like to finish up there, like if those types of things, if you could just share from that perspective about homeschooling and what it meant to you, Katelyn. And then also, if you just want to share anything with all these families out there that are really trying to decide which way to go.
Yeah, so like you were saying, I feel that I am so much closer with my brothers and with you and dad than a lot of people get to be when they go to public school, because I got to be around you all and I got to know you. And we truly grew up together. Um, and so I think it just fostered this really special relationship with you all, and then with my brothers too, um, that I not everybody gets to say they have. So I count myself incredibly lucky for that, and I wouldn't have gotten to have it without homeschooling. And then in terms of things to for families who are considering homeschooling, I would just say it's definitely okay to be scared, and you can't expect yourself to know exactly what you're doing from the get-go. That's kind of the cool thing about homeschooling, is that you can explore and you can try different things, and you don't even have to stick with the same curriculum in one semester. You can evaluate after a few weeks, and you can just be like, all right, this isn't working, we're going to try something new. So feel excited by the possibilities rather than daunted by them. I know there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to take in, and there's a lot of information to try to retain, but it's a really, really incredible opportunity if you decide to tackle it. And
that's where I come in. Tune in.
Yeah.
Join the new parent community. Yes. But no, you're exactly right. I love that you shared that. It really is good. It is okay to shift. And I think she'll be okay with me sharing this sweet story as we end here, because this is a perfect example, right? My first year, people asked me at the end of the year, hey, how was it? You know, was it great? Was it tough? What was the toughest thing about it? And I said, honestly, looking myself in the mirror, because I had to recognize my own preconceived notions. And I knew I didn't want to have school at home, but we all like what we're used to. And so what we think we have to do and what it has to look like. And my kids taught me so much that first year. And one example for Katelyn is I tried this math curriculum that I thought, okay, this is good. It's solid. It's wonderful. And it was only a couple weeks in. And I looked over and they were doing their math, and they didn't have a problem with it. We didn't spend hours on school books or anything. They actually enjoyed and would sit down and like having their books, because it wasn't like hours or sitting there forever. But one day I looked over at Katelyn, and she was just sitting there, so sweet, with her hands in her lap, and she was just looking at her book, and I saw tears just rolling down her cheek. And I was like, honey, what is wrong? Are you okay? What's wrong? And she just looked up at me and she goes, Mommy, there's no color. And I was like, oh, I'm a terrible mom. I know how important art is to her, and she's creative. And it never dawned on me for a second that it didn't register with her nearly as well, because it was in black and white, and it was just this page of numbers and calculations, and her brain just couldn't process it. It was incredible to learn that about my daughter. And so what did I do? I was like, okay, we need to find something with color, you know? And it's so wonderful that we can learn from each other. And so everything that you just shared about family and it being okay that you can't figure it out all at once, so I love that. And I love that you recognize that, because I know, let me tell you, moms, there are going to be lots of times where everybody is just on each other, crabby. Nobody wants to do anything. And Katelyn, remember some of the stuff we would do? I would just be like, okay, we're going on a field trip. Let's go out of the house. Or
we go to the forest preserve and take a walk.
Catch frogs.
Yeah.
Get out, right? And just do something. Go to the zoo. We had membership at museums, so that I didn't have to worry about if we were there for 2 hours. It didn't matter, right? Because we could do it whenever we wanted. Or if it was yuck outside or the middle of winter, we would get our sleeping bags. I'd have them get their sleeping bags, and we'd do an indoor campfire with goodies and tell stories, and just have fun. I loved homeschooling. Can you tell? I loved it so much. But Katelyn, thank you, sweetheart, thank you for coming on and sharing. It really, truly, I know I get inspired every time I hear you. And I hope for sure that that families can really embrace what you're saying and what you're sharing. So thank you. And I love
Absolutely.
you.
I love you.
No, and I can't wait to see you soon.
Yeah, I miss
I'm
you.
really glad about that, that she's downtown. I keep telling her, I'm like, oh, this is so great having an adult daughter who's downtown with her own place. But she
Mhm.
has got such a busy social life on top of her job that I haven't been able to take advantage of that quite yet. I have to get on her calendar.
I kept myself so academically busy in college that I had basically no social life by my own choice.
Well, and then
Um,
COVID hit, which is really
oh
hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But anyway, so now,
yeah.
well, I love you very much. And thank you so much for sharing
Of
everything and
course.
being so transparent. Love you, honey.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yay. Okay, bye. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.